So if we want to try to identify the real founding teachings, then we have to go to Pythagoras. And we can make a mention here. I can mention briefly Pythagoras, who was of Syros or Syria, who was his teacher. And we do have texts that say from about 570 BC that he did teach immortality of the soul and the rebirth of the soul that would take on many lives. And it's interesting because here again is this mysterious reference to the Egyptians, because Pythagoras of Syros says he learned the secrets of the reincarnation teaching from where? The Chaldeans and the Egyptians. So whatever it may say about the text of the Egyptians that have survived, there's still this tradition that, long ago, that the Egyptians held some kind of idea of reincarnation. That's why there's this debate. But it's Pythagoras who actually really, teaches reincarnation to his followers and to the Pythagorean community, and it really becomes part of the Pythagorean and the Neo-Pythagorean tradition. And this is Pythagoras, born on the island of Samos in Greece. What happens? He goes to, Egypt to study. He spends 10 years in Egypt studying the mysteries. And then he decides he wants to learn the teachings of the Zoroastrians and the Magi. And he goes to Babylonia, and he studies 10 years there. Now here's a question. While he's in Babylonia, did he communicate with the Indus Valley? Because there was trade between Babylonia and the Indus Valley. So that meant possibly he traveled to India, to the Indus Valley, and maybe he studied there for a while and then came back. So here's a possible connection to the Indian influence as well as to the Egyptian influence. And his what's so interesting about Pythagoras is not only did he teach a doctrine of reincarnation, but he claimed to remember his past lives. And he actually gave details on 4 of his past lives. So here we have that participatory epistemology again. He's remembering. He's claiming it directly. He's not saying it's a teaching he learned. He remembers that he had past lives. And he describes, there's a sort of a remarkable story. I got to be careful not to get too sidetracked here. But there is an interesting story. And the story is, he actually is described being killed at the Battle of Troy, outside the walls of Troy. And he said, and I was such and such a soldier, who wasn't really a well-known soldier or anything, had some recognition, and he described his shield. He said, and I carried this shield, and he just, these Greek shields are very, very detailed and well-developed, and he describes it, and he said, and that shield was mine, and it was specially made for me, and so on. Later, they found the shield, and the shield was exactly what he described. So that's a pretty convincing piece of evidence there, So he remembers his past lives, and he had this capacity to through purification and initiation. We're always going to have that sort of background theme that people who are initiated and purified and been through the process, he could actually induce in them a state of memory that they would recall their past lives. His followers, not him, but his followers. And there's a number of stories about how they would get together and he would do whatever he did, and they would suddenly start remembering past life experiences to confirm it. So there is this kind of experiential element here. And of course, he links his teaching to, once again, moral precepts. That escaping from rebirth and not being reborn means living a very pure life, going through the special training that Pythagoras initiated. He's the first person, to use the word esoterica. He called his followers the esoterikoi. So this is really one of the origins for the term esoteric. And he links it to being following a nonviolent ethic and taught vegetarianism, and that animals had souls and no harm to animals in order to preserve the well-being of each person. So we would like to say, and then he really developed this full-blown theory, but unfortunately it's all in fragments in his teachings, so I can't really tell you too much more about that. And the homogenes is the theory. This is basically a moral theory because it basically means all people together, but he meant all beings together, all human beings, all animals, all plants, all life is one family. And so the teaching was, do not do harm to your family. Do not do harm to any member of your family. Don't harm animals. Don't harm the trees. Live in harmony and peace with them, and then rebirth you will eventually evolve to a higher plane of existence and not be in the world. But those who do harm come back and suffer as a result of their activities. And then there is, of course, Empedocles, who is a follower of Pythagoras, and he also claimed to remember his past lives and narrates stories. But what's interesting about his, and this is again in fragments, that he was not only a human being, but he remembers his past life as animals. He remembers his past life as plants. So that's that's really remembering, you know. And so he sort of introduces a theory here, which is maybe a theory of development, because he has this idea: plants, animals, human, that the soul evolves up through species into the human state, where it can escape altogether the incarnation in the physical world. And he actually distinguishes between the daemon and the psyche. The psyche, remember that the term psyche was soul in Greek. It's interesting because this is a theory that's going to keep coming back, that each person, the soul is what we have now, embodied in the world. It's the embodied consciousness that is within this particular lifetime. But the daemon is like the higher spiritual aspect of the soul. And there's some higher aspect of the soul that does not reincarnate. It's still out there, so to speak, in the higher realm. And actually, wisdom and gnosis is the reunification of the soul with its higher spiritual aspect. If you're a Jungian, you could maybe say higher self, you know. It's like his idea is that we've lost our connection with our highest capacity, our highest spiritual identity, and we're sunk into the world of experience. And once you cut that and don't have that connection, then the world becomes much more contracted and much more local, and you've lost your spiritual connection, so to speak. And so the teaching is you have to reconnect with this daemon, and really the daemon then becomes a kind of guiding spirit, or guardian spirit. You know this idea of the guardian spirit, right? That might be back to this ancient idea about this higher element that sort of watches over us, helps us in times, but in dreams, communicates through dreams with us. In dreaming, we connect to this higher realm. And the soul has really fallen into the world, and he was asked, he said, so what are you doing here? If you're a daemon from the higher world, and so why are you here? And he answers, his famous answer is, I put my faith in strife. I was attracted to conflict. I liked conflict. So here he is. Okay, so he's in the world of conflict. Congratulations.